Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Martin Willis, your host, and guess what? This is show number 400. Yes, 400 shows. I would have never believed it. Our guest tonight is PJ Hughes, and we're going to be talking about the USS Nimitz encounter. I actually had PJ pick a couple of random numbers for our 400th show celebration, and because I'm going to be, let me put this up on the screen. I'm going to be giving away a couple of things. First of all, this is for callers, that is. So I had him pick a couple of random numbers between 1 and 6, between 1 and 8, that is, for callers that call into the show. And then the first one will get this T-shirt, and the next one is going to get a work that my sister Heidi Powers, she's probably even in the chat room, I don't know. She did this, so that will be going out to another random caller, the second random caller. I want to thank everyone for supporting this show. I couldn't do it without you. Matter of fact, I think this is the only thing I'm doing these days, just this show. So I really do appreciate your help. And anyone can support the show. We're over at Patreon. That link's on the website, podcastufo.com. And you want to check out our blogs over there anyway. We have some great blogs by Charles Lear. We have the T-shirts that I just showed up on YouTube, available, and other merchandise available. And this week's blog is on APRO, UFOs and the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization. Great blog on that. All right, about our guest, PJ, or Patrick Hughes, PJ Hughes. He served in the Navy as an Aviation Electronics Technician, primary on the E-2C Hawkeye and the C-2A Greyhound airframes. He left the Navy in September of 2010 as a first-class petty officer to work on the civilian side of military, which generally happens, it seems. And he's employed as a technical representative for the E-2C and E-2 Hawkeye. Now, as I was talking to PJ off air, a lot of people are new listeners, and they have absolutely no idea when we're talking about the USS Nimitz. I know at least a couple of people that are listening tonight that have no idea what it is. So just briefly, the incident was a radar and visual encounter of unidentified flying object or objects. Well, the radar was definitely of lots of objects. U.S. fighter pilot of the Nimitz Carrier Strike Group in 2004. Two FA-18 Super Hornet pilots led by the commander of the Strike Force Fighter Squadron 41 communicated that they saw a flying object. And this is where the Tic Tac comes from, because it was about the size of the aircraft, around 40 feet or so. And it did seem like it had two antennas on that. I'm not really sure. There's differing remarks on that as well. But the movements this thing did was beyond our known physics. Without something like that, any type of object we would have like that would basically just fall apart. If there was anything inside, it would be jello or beyond jello into some other thing we can't even imagine. But anyway, I'm not really sure what those objects were, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. PJ actually had, I think, a pseudonym friend named Roger that was a witness that he himself can't come forward. But there is some involvement PJ had in regards to bricks that were taken away. We're going to be talking about all that and much more. And the last part of the show will be taking calls. So, of course, that's your chance to get a free T-shirt and artwork. I'm going to start and say hello to you, PJ. How are you? Welcome to the show.
I'm good. How about yourself?
Great. I think it was just about a year ago you were on with some other, I think Dave Beatty and Jason
Turner.
Jason Turner, that's right. Yeah, so you were on then, so it was about a year. And since that time, you have thought a lot about this whole situation. And one thing I do recall from our last conversation is you like things fact-based.
I do.
And you know that this incident is definitely fact-based, for one.
That it is. A lot of facts.
Yeah,
Lots and lots out there.
A lot of strange facts. So why don't you, if you would, first, if you would, tell your part of the story without Roger. I mean, it's pretty amazing what happened with these. These are data bricks, so they're like hard drives, right?
Yeah, they're about this big. They're actually computer hard drives inside a fancy case, and basically they run the back end of the airplane. They run everything. They run all the systems, all the avionics. So it's pretty critical to the operation of the aircraft. And they're classified, obviously, so we don't leave them in the airplanes. We take them in and out per flight. They get mixed up, but we're able to track them. And on the particular day where the intercepts happened with Commander Fravor and the involvement with the Hawkeye and everything, that flight was being recorded for maintenance purposes. When I say recorded, it's not a video recording like the FLIR video that you saw. It's recording the tracks on the screen, the hard data behind it, all the radar data, all the ESM data, data link data, and it's all consolidated and recorded on those bricks. And when the plane came back, I took those bricks out of the airplane. We put them in our safe like we normally do. 15, 20 minutes, give or take. That timeline varies because that was a long time ago now. But shortly after that plane returned, my executive officer, I've actually stated it was my commanding officer numerous times, but it actually was my executive officer. Same guy, different position, because right after the event, he ended up taking over as a commanding officer. So that's where my confusion was.
Yeah.
But he shows up at my door with two guys in Air Force flight suits, which is not normal because you don't really see them on the ship. And when they're there, you generally know about them. So I have no idea how they got to the ship. The only logical way they got to the ship was by helicopter because that's the only way I personally would not have seen them. Because the only other way on is by COD, and I would have seen them on that. That's the other airplane I work on. And he asked me, so my executive officer asked me for the bricks that were on that flight, which is somewhat abnormal because normally if he wants to talk to us, we go across the ship to him. He doesn't come to us. So we take them out of the safe. We have logbooks that we track of where they are, what planes they were going. And I start to log the bricks out to him, which we have done on other occasions to various officers for various reasons. And he tells me to stop. Don't
really?
find him out.
So, yeah, I remember you saying that. I wanted to ask you last time. Why would that, I mean, maybe it's an obvious reason, but why would that be? Is there any normal circumstance that something is not logged in, something as important as that?
There are two ways a person can look at this. For some odd reason, they did not want to track that stuff, which is, equally likely as what I hope actually happened. All the classified material in a squadron ultimately belongs to the commanding officer. It's all in his custody. It's all his responsibility. Even though it's my responsibility as a technician and somebody with a clearance, it ultimately all falls on him. So I have to assume that above my head, paperwork was done. That somewhere above my head, they did the tracking paperwork and they did the custody sheets and all the other stuff that they have to do. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Problem to find out that answer.
Yeah.
But
well, anyway, go ahead and continue. Sorry for the interruption there.
Oh, no. Like I said, they took my stuff and left. And that was, for the longest time, the last I'd ever heard of it. But there's some news on where those bricks went afterwards that I've been given the answer to since all this happened. All the data, and I've speculated what data I think they were looking for, and specifically I think they were looking for the ESM data, which is essentially a passive dissection system. It listens for frequencies, among other things. And I'm pretty sure that's the data they wanted, because that's the data that's unique to my airplane. The Princeton wouldn't have it. The Nimitz wouldn't have it. None of the fighters would have it. So that's the only data that was unique, and it can tell a lot about what those objects were, if they were transmitting or emitting frequencies or any of that. But all that data was taken, compiled by somebody. I don't know who that somebody is, and they were used to brief high-level people at the Pentagon. A couple months ago, a Freedom of Information Request Act response came out, and the memo actually mentioned briefing slides that were classified. And I'm sure they're one and the same.
How about that? And
I can't you how I know this yet. I can't reveal who told me.
Yeah.
But I highly trust and I highly believe the person who told me.
Yeah.
So people know.
Now let's talk a little bit about what the Hawkeye is. That is basically above an operation and kind of like looking out. It's the eyes. It's the eyes of the operation, or I heard someone say the quarterback, so to speak.
That is my favorite analogy. It's the quarterback of the Air Wing, because they don't do anything without a Hawkeye. We direct the mission. We direct the fighters. If you recall Dave Beatty's awesome documentary, I have to hit him up every time I can because I wouldn't be here if it weren't for him. He actually mentions in that video, and Kevin Day has mentioned it also, that the Princeton requested control of Fravor's aircraft and his wingman from the Hawkeye, because the Hawkeye was up there to control the air defense exercises that they were supposed to participate in. They do everything. Yeah.
I am, for the people on YouTube, I'm going to play a clip for a while on, it's actually Dave Beatty's clip. And I did try to get permission from him. I didn't hear back, so I'm going to ask for forgiveness if it's not good. But anyway, so the clip's playing for a while up on YouTube. And that is a really great video that Dave Beatty did. So
he was thorough in his research.
Yeah, he did a really nice job on that. So just let me ask you about the Hawkeye. Couldn't that, it just seems like that plane, or whatever you want to call it, could be just a sitting duck during a real wartime, situation. Is
the Hawkeye is a sitting duck. It has no defensive weapons. If somebody managed to get close enough to shoot at it, it can't even fly out of its own way. It's not a fast airplane. Yeah. Normally, it's operating in an area where F-18s can get to it rather quickly.
I see.
It's never up in the air by itself.
Yeah. And what is the altitude that generally flies at? Is that classified?
30,000 feet or so, depending on.
Yeah. So it's way up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That the higher it gets, the further it can see.
I see. Wow. And very interesting. And so you when this thing landed, it was basically your job, once they, so to speak, park the plane or whatever they do, wherever it's supposed to be. That's when you basically jump on board and grab these bricks. Is that, am I saying how that goes?
That's pretty accurate. I mean, we're up there before the plane even lands because we have to chain it down and do all kinds of other stuff to it. And part of our post-flight procedure is pulling those bricks, among making sure everything got turned off. We didn't lose anything. Nothing got broken. So we're up there for a good, 10, 15 minutes before we take our stuff down.
I see. Now, on those bricks in particular, can you, do those get reformatted just for a lack of, I don't know what you would call it?
There are machines that we use to maintain those, because we had, 6 per airplane, probably 30-something of those stupid little hard drives.
Yeah.
Because there was a high failure rate, so we were changing them often. And there was a lot of data for other stuff that we had to change out on those all the time. And the easiest way to do it was to just make a copy of everything over and over and over again, instead of trying to load them all individually. So they got rewritten quite often.
I see, yeah. All right. So did you, when those things were your commanding officer or whoever you said he was, I know, when he came to you with those two other officers, probably Air Force, maybe?
They were. There's a distinct difference between an Air Force flight suit and a Navy flight suit,
Yeah.
you can tell the difference. The insignia is different. The patches are different. The placement is different. And we're taught in boot camp to recognize that. So I know for a fact they were Air Force guys.
Okay.
Or guys wearing Air Force flight suits.
I see. So your commanding officer or that person made no excuses. He said, we just got to have these and that's it, right? I mean, he never really got into it. Did he tell you not to say anything about it?
No. We were never directly told to not say anything. As far as they were concerned, we didn't know anything to say.
Yeah.
He just took our stuff. That was it,
Now, what about, I heard someone say that on the next day on the little newspaper that goes around that they were teasing David Fravor by having, an alien or something along those lines. So did you hear about what I'm getting at is, did you hear about the incident right away?
I heard a beginning portion of it from the individual we call Roger when he came back to our shop before we were told to stop talking about it. Not officially, just we were told to shut up. So
yeah, and that was that the same day or shortly after the bricks were taken.
Stuff. Yep. Yeah. The airplane, which is all the flight schedules for the entire Air Wing and everything, they have that cartoon on every one, and it's a very cartoon, horrible artwork a lot of the times. Whatever random person happened to have the closest art skills for the day, and they make fun of everyone in the Air Wing. If there's somebody in the Air Wing did something dumb, they got fun of. That's just what that was for. Yeah. So when the Fravor came back and made no secret of what he saw, they let him have it. They were playing Men in Black and other alien-themed movies on the ship's television. The officers made a big joke about it.
Yeah. Now, here's a question I just showed on video, the Hawkeye taking off. Here's the question I have for you. Why this Roger, we're going to be talking about Roger, but why was Roger told not to talk about it, yet David Fravor can speak about it? The commander.
I do not know the official reason for any of that. I can tell you what I've been told and what I know. The 5 guys on the Hawkeye, when they got back, went into a skiff, which is a centralized information facility. It's basically a room where you can't hear anybody on the inside. It's soundproof. They can talk about classified stuff openly. They went in there to take a debrief with somebody. I don't know who that somebody is. And during that debrief, they signed non-disclosure agreements and were told, obviously, because of those non-disclosure agreements, not to say anything. And I believe it has a lot to do with what they would have seen on the displays, on the scopes, what our systems told them was there, and the fact that they were almost point-blank range with that object. It's not a highly publicized fact because there's no video or photos, but the Tic Tac object, actually formed up with the Hawkeye and was, with almost wingtip to wingtip if it had wings. It was close enough for them to get a damn good look at it.
Wow. Now, has Roger ever mentioned that there was any fear involved with, possible attacking or something like that? Not necessarily a UFO, but...
I don't necessarily know if it was fear of being attacked, but Roger loved to fly. It didn't matter what he was flying for. He had a smile on his face. When he came back, he did not have that smile on his face.
Wow.
He was uncomfortable. He was nervous. He did not, he couldn't elaborate on everything, obviously, that happened. But, he was definitely visibly uncomfortable when he got back. And it's for that reason. If that object wanted to do something, they had nothing to stop it.
Yeah, that's right. I had Dr. Kevin Gnuth on a while back, and he was talking about the physics of these things, which is absolutely incredible. And I know that you and I connected because I got a hold of you when I saw something you you wrote, I believe, on Facebook that you were thinking that these are possibly something explainable, or possibly our tech.
I've almost since I've gone public with it, I've been pretty close to 50-50 on it being something off our world or it being our tech. I know about stuff that the average person doesn't know. Technique or equipment and tactics and capabilities that we have that most people don't know about. And if there's stuff I know about that the average person doesn't know about, I fully believe there's a ton of stuff I don't know about. I know for a fact there's stuff I don't know about. So it's not out of the realm of possibilities for, at least in my eyes, for it to be our technology. But it's in that spot where, like I said, I'm a little bit more than 60-40, 50-50, somewhere in there, depending on who I'm talking to on the day. Yeah. There's no definitive evidence either way.
That's right. And unless someone has it and we don't know about it.
Correct.
You know.
Don't get me wrong, if it is ours, we got a lot of stuff to relearn when it comes to physics and propulsion and other stuff. But it's not out of the realm of possibilities, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, we are ready to go into our break right now. So hang in, everyone. We'll be right back right after these messages. And on YouTube, just hang in there. We'll be back. All right. Welcome back to the show. My guest tonight is PJ Hughes. We're talking about the USS Nimitz Tic Tac UFO incident. Happened back in 2004, nearly 16 years ago. So, PJ, back at this, we were talking about the, what the technology possibilities are. And as I mentioned a little bit earlier, having Kevin Knuth on this show a while back, he demonstrated some of the G-forces that these things would have to create. I mean, would have to, endure, I want to say. And, I forget exactly what it was, 20,000 feet to right down above the ocean.
Yep.
In less than a second?
Give or take a split second.
It's like 1,500 G-forces, which would almost bend a quarter, I would think. And I know these things are tubular, they're rounded on each side, they're designed for pressure, basically, if you think about the way they're designed, but still.
Oh, yeah.
How do you think that we could have a technology, and I'm not here to argue with, just know that, I'm not here to argue with you, I just want to know, do you actually, you said you know a lot more than the average person, perhaps, but what type of technology could handle G-forces like that?
When I got out, I went to work for Northrop Grumman, and through that and some stuff I was still doing with the Navy, I was exposed to other stuff, and I can't elaborate on all of it, but like I said, if those technologies are there that close to my level, there's other stuff at levels I'm not close to. And we have a drone that looks like a mini stealth bomber that can take off, fly itself to the carrier, land, take off, refuel, do everything it needs without any human intervention whatsoever. And that's not a secret. That's been on newspapers. If that technology, which was in development back before I even joined the Navy, is that far perfected now, there's other stuff that's got to be in development to replace technology like that. It's just the way the industrial complex works. They've always got to get that newer, better thing. And I don't personally think there was a pilot inside that object. There's no way, based on what we know, that a human body would have survived that. But when you look at the fact that I think they were most likely after the ESM data, which would have been frequencies and other stuff along those lines, then if something was controlling that object from a ground station or from somewhere else, we would have been able to track the frequencies or anything else electronic that was going back and forth between that object and something else.
Wow. Well, hey, it's possible. Okay, I was having a little trouble with the stream. It seems to be okay now. Oh, good. Okay. So you said they had a technology that could, but as far as the speeds of it, it couldn't have. There's no drone that we know of that could have speeds like that, right?
Correct. There's nothing I'm aware of that goes that fast.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm not sold on it 100% being ours, because there's a lot of stuff we don't know that's unexplained about it that I can't answer, that nobody can answer. So maybe it's not ours.
Yeah.
I'm not against that.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, when you're out in your everyday life, does this topic ever come up anywhere? Have you ever heard someone else talk about it or joined in a conversation?
Only once. And that was ironically my therapist at the VA. When I went to go, I had mentioned something I was doing, and she was actually aware of it, not nearly to the depth that, people who want to know about it are, but she had actually heard of it, which was really the first time.
Wow. And what about friends? I mean, is it a topic you can bring up to friends, or you ever want to?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've talked with guys who were other guys in the shop who were there at the time. The problem is most of the guys I worked with are still in either the Navy or in a government contract position, and they need their clearance. So they're not going to say anything because they don't want to risk it. And that's one of the big issues with Roger. I know what Roger's doing and why he won't come forward.
Yeah.
And I completely support it, obviously. But some people still have, even though they shouldn't have anything to lose, still have a lot to lose because of misconceptions that come along with all this.
Yeah. But that hasn't harmed you in any way, has it?
Nope.
Yeah.
Got no reason for it.
Yeah.
I've also said if the right person with the right credentials showed up at my porch tomorrow and told me never to talk about this again, you'd never hear from me again.
Yeah.
But until that day, I'm going to say what I want.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the men in black will show up. Yeah. I was just thinking about if there's other witnesses that you're aware of besides Roger that would like to talk about it, or that you've talked to, offline, not publicly. Are there people like that you've talked to or know about?
3 other guys that were on my shift with me at that time who knew what happened. And there's another individual who I spoke with almost right after that event and was telling portions of what I knew at the time that have all spoken to me, obviously, but, I end up being the bumper. Nobody's going to get between me and them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you ever get any grief for that? Like people say, well, why, you're not a first-hand witness. Why should we take your word for it? Do you ever get that type of grief?
I mean, half the people are like, for all I know, you're making it up because those people aren't going to come forward. But the only one I really lean on when I repeat the story is Roger. And that's because Roger has also spoken with Dave Beatty. And Dave Beatty did his own, not vetting, but had his own conversation with Roger separate from I did. So as far as I'm concerned, Roger has been vetted and proven to be a real person. That's why I lean heavily on his story, because I have somebody who can back me up saying, hey, yeah, I did speak with Roger and he did say this.
I see. Yeah.
All the rest of the guys, it's just conversations between me and them. I have no true proof to support it.
Yeah. And I know that there's going to be, there is a planned situation where Kevin Day and a few others get together, and they're going to be out on the Pacific in the general area. Do you know anything about that in particular?
Oh, yeah. It's called UAP Expeditions.
That's right. Yeah.
It is Kevin Day's baby, so to speak. But ultimately, their goal is to rent a couple ships. They've got a big team of highly qualified people that know far more about science than I could ever even dream about. Experts in their fields, biology, science, you name it, and they're going to go out on their ships, head out to the same areas. I believe the intent is to leave one off of SoCal,
Yeah.
up towards where we first saw them. The other one's headed down south to where we also had the interactions, and they're going to try and, find these objects again.
What do you think the odds are the odds are kind of tough on something like that? Whether, that's the one problem about UFOs is they're unpredictable. And that's why a lot of science people do not get involved, because it's not a repeatable thing. They're taking a chance, but I mean, it's, in my opinion, it's better than not trying. Do you happen to know of any other sightings of these type of things? Are they
indirectly through research between the show on the History Channel and other research that they've done? There have been other similar sightings of similar Tic Tac objects all over that area, up around Catalina Island and down south to some island off Mexico I can't think of the name of. So there's a good track record of these objects in that area, which is why they're going there.
I see.
Because if we're going to go somewhere where we stand a chance of possibly seeing these again with the right equipment to learn something, that's the area.
Uh-huh. Well, I wish them good luck. It'll be interesting. I'm going to be in touch with at least Kevin Day, before, and hopefully that'll still happen this year. When this encounter happened, and right after it happened, I should say, is it something that just kind of went away in your mind until, things started bubbling up again, or did you talk about it along the way?
It was in the Gary Voorhees said it best. It was a drinking story. When we started drinking with buddies, and it came out. But beyond that, it was out of sight, out of mind. Until I'd run across Dave Beatty's documentary on YouTube, and then I reached out to Dave. I'm like, "Hey, there's a whole section of the story you don't know about. Happy to tell you what I know." And it's just spiraled from there, and I've been in contact with more people, and obviously the guys from Princeton. And the nice thing about the small group of us between the Nimitz and the Princeton is we'd all spoken with Dave Beatty individually before any of us spoke to each other.
Wow.
So,
is that right? Wow.
With the exception of Kevin Day and Gary Voorhees, mainly because they kind of came out together. Gary kind of reached out to him, and then Dave got in the loop. But the rest of us, Dave has spoken with us individually before. So there's no real argument for anybody to be like, oh, yeah, we all got together and made it up.
Well, Kevin Day actually watched my interview with Robert Powell about this incident, and then wrote a comment on the YouTube that I did with Robert Powell. This is going back a couple of years now. And then Robert reached out to him on Facebook, and that's how Kevin got connected with. That's what started the ball rolling. So he was paying attention. I think he saw something on the news or something first, and so
Kevin Day's obviously been the lead on all of this, other than Fravor, obviously, because Fravor went public. But Kevin had written a short story.
Oh yes,
years and years ago, based on these events, and had it published, figuring at least he had it recorded in some place, even if it wasn't the 100% true story, he had it written down way back then. So actually a good story if you read it.
Yeah, I know he had those books when I met him out in Phoenix. He was, wow, I'm glad that, you have felt comfortable enough, to come forward and talk about this. But would you say the strangest part of this whole thing is that it was, first of all, that it happened, and that there was no explanation or no real talk about it from your superiors?
It's definitely strange that there's no further comment about it because of the clearance I had and how tightly I worked with many of the officers. Because I had other duties aside from, being a technician. I had collateral duties, extra jobs, so to speak. So I was quite close with many of the officers. So we would have normal conversations because I was in the ready room every morning checking message traffic. So there was a lot that I knew that they didn't always spread around the whole squadron, just because I was in the place to hear about it, to talk to them about it. So that I often got at least basic versions of a lot of events that happened, and there was nothing said about this.
Wow.
Nothing.
Yeah. That is puzzling. And there's I'm sure you've heard the theory out there that this was an Air Force. There's someone that came forward that claims he knows 100% sure that this is Air Force and all that, and it was basically the Air Force playing games with the Navy over this whole thing. And
Well,
of course, he also talks about, I think he talks about the confiscation of the bricks too by the Air Force, but
yeah, not that the Air Force has never played games with us, because they have, and we've played plenty of games with them.
yeah.
And we've shot down their airplanes in training way more than they shot us down. So I'm just going to go there.
That doesn't look good. Yeah.
But this individual, and I don't even feel like mentioning his name anymore, is a complete and utter fraud.
Yes.
Yeah. I've gone through and proven a bunch of what he said is wrong.
Yeah.
Is wrong and why it's wrong. And, the guy basically took and used terminology that would have never been used outside of my squadron. That alone, he would have never used the term bricks. He would have never used some of the other terminology he used, because outside of our little community, nobody called them that. The official name for those stupid things is removable media cartridge. Mm-hmm. That's what they're called outside of us. The only reason we call them bricks is because the darn things weighed a ton, and when you're lugging them around all day, you start to give them a nickname.
Yeah.
But yeah, that guy is a complete and utter fraud.
Yeah.
And I would love for him to take the lie detector test he agreed to, so everybody can learn from themselves.
Well, someone was trying to, force him on my show, and I watched a YouTube of him, and I got in touch with my friend Alejandro Rojas, who, was on the show for quite a while, and said, I'm not buying this guy. I said, not only he had, even his body language was, as he was talking about these things, and there was some issues there that. I forget exactly what he said, but he kept saying the same thing over and over again, which made me think that I didn't buy it. Basically, that's the bottom line. And we both know who that individual is. Will remain nameless. But what about other things? Have you paid attention enough to hear, what other people are theorizing on what happened?
There's a lot of people who don't have all the same information we do. And the unfortunate part is, especially when it comes to Gary and myself, there's a lot of the technology that was in use that we know, and we know why we're saying certain things, but we can't elaborate because that technology to this day is still classified. A lot of what I say and make my guesses and assumptions based on everything, because that's all they are at this point, is guesses and assumptions, is based on a lot of the tactics and capabilities I know my airplane is capable of. I know what my airplane was capable of doing, but I can't, other than saying some of the names, I can't really share anything else.
Yeah.
And that puts a buffer between a lot of people and, me, because they want me to spill everything, and I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
Because I still have friends that fly in those airplanes. I still have friends that work on those airplanes. I would be putting them in jeopardy if I started talking about some of that stuff. Not to mention, I've got a stack of non-disclosure agreements for all kinds of stuff that I can't talk about, and I have a security clearance that is inactive at the moment. But if I needed it tomorrow, I could reactivate it. And there's an oath, so to speak. There's a trust that comes along with that I won't break.
Yeah. Now, what about Roger? Can you talk more about his story? I know we're going to be going into a break in about 7 minutes, but anyway, can you talk? Basically, what did Roger have to say? And like, I know you've been in touch with him since.
So there's two lines of Roger's communication with me. There's very little that he's told me that I can share, and then a lot that he's told me that I can't. And some of it he's probably not even supposed to tell me, but friends do things.
Yeah.
Roger was an in-flight tech. He was an enlisted guy who went flying with the aircrew when stuff was broken to troubleshoot stuff, to fix stuff that we can't duplicate on the ground.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
That was his primary function. So he was on that flight because he also had to have a minimum amount of flight hours every month to, maintain his flight pay and his qualifications and stuff. So, even sometimes when he had no reason to fly, he was flying. But he knew that airplane as well as I did, as well as most of the officers, probably even better than some of them, on how to operate everything and how to fix it. And, so he was a very useful tool to them. He was on that flight during Fravors intercept. He was sitting in the radar officer's position, which is in the back of the airplane, but towards the middle. It was relatively normal flight till Princeton took control of Fravors aircraft and his wingman. They were still controlling the rest of the air defense exercise, should it have started, which it didn't, because ultimately the whole thing was called off. And while they were up there flying around, the object came up, and right outside their windows was just there. And as quick as it was there, it was gone. And when I first had reached out to Dave Beatty, and it's kind of funny, he was trying to vet me with somebody else. And that person kept coming back saying everything I was saying was wrong. Oh, the Hawkeye doesn't have windows. Well, yes, it does. And here's a picture of those windows. Oh, they don't have enlisted guys that fly in those airplanes. Oh, yes, they do. Here's a freaking video of Roger in that airplane looking out that window.
Mm-hmm.
So the evidence is there to support it. And, the windows aren't huge, but you can see clearly at them.
Yeah.
And if all of a sudden something pops there, they're going to look. And all it takes is one person to see it. And it was, if you ever look at planes flying in formation, they're not too far from each other. A little further than the Blue Angels, but not quite so far. It was just there. They saw the same object Fravor did, gave the same description Fravor did. And then it just went away.
Oh.
As quick as it pulled up.
Now there were possibly like 60 of these things total, or maybe 60 times they saw.
That they tracked the Princeton's radar, obviously tracked multiple objects at a time over the span of a whole week before we actually intercepted them. They came, and I think Kevin Day said batches of like 10 to 15. So we don't know if maybe it was the same 10 to 15 things, or if it was more, or if it was less, but more than one object was tracked. And when the objects were airborne and we intercepted Fravor, the Hawkeye may have an old radar, but it's a solid, very capable radar, and it was tracking the objects just as well as the Princeton was. So you have two different radars of two different types tracking these objects. That is solid, hard evidence that these were physical objects, not a projection, not a hologram, not any of the other things I've been told. They were physical, real objects.
And since you have been on the show, now the Navy is actually has come out and said that they are, they're I forget exactly the terminology they used, but they're allowing people to report these UFOs. It's really the only arm of the service. Am I saying that wrong? What
No, you're saying it right.
Yeah.
The Navy and all the branches of the military, for that fact, they have reporting programs for all kinds of stuff. Whether it's, hey, we ran over a bird. Well, we got to report that.
Bird hit.
They've got all kinds of criteria for different things. If something falls off my airplane while it's flying, I got a whole stack of paperwork to do. So the paperwork or the process for somebody to report a UFO or, an unidentified object has always been there in one shape or form. But now the Navy itself has said, we're not going to laugh at you if you submit these. We're going to take them seriously.
Yeah.
And that is something the Air Force has not said, the Army has not said, the government itself has not said. The Navy has said to its pilots who are going to see these objects, even if they turn out to be weather balloons or, somebody's drone flying from their backyard, they're encouraging their pilots to report these, which means at some point the dam is going to break and more of these objects are going to be reported. But it's not an instant fix just saying it out loud. There's a whole culture that's got to be changed.
Yeah. But that is a big deal. I mean, it's a real big deal that they did that, I believe. And
yes.
A lot of people I know also agree with that. And it only just keeps opening the door for people to take this topic serious enough to really look into it. I'm glad they did it.
Oh, I wholeheartedly hope that more comes of it. And shortly after it came out, I actually asked a friend of mine who's in a more senior position in the Navy who would have been exposed to that message traffic. And I was like, hey, did you really see this? He's like, yes. It really came through the message traffic. They really said it, and we all got a good laugh about it. That's the culture that's still got to change.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. All right, well, we're ready to go into the break. So thanks, everyone. We'll be right back right after these messages with PJ Hughes. Hello, and welcome back to the show. My guest tonight is PJ Hughes, and we're talking the USS Nimitz Tic Tac UFO incident. I have said many times, not that everyone listens to me, but it's just my thoughts, that I think this is one of the most interesting encounters. It really rates up really, really high, and the main reason it does is because of, first of all, the witnesses and the data on it. I mean, it's almost like you can't deny this. A lot of things you can, the swamp gas situations where you can say it's this or that, or Venus or the moon, or whatever you want to say. On this one in particular, you can't say that really. It's just too much there.
I mean, aside from the witnesses who are all highly trained individuals, you have the Navy who said, yep, it happened. Yep, these videos are real. You can't get much more than that. Yeah.
And so I guess it just boils down to, again, which it always boils down to is, what was it? And what was it that we saw? That type of thing. But
that's one of the biggest reasons we all keep talking is because we want to know what it is, and at some point, somehow, we're going to stumble upon that answer, and that's what we're waiting for.
I sure hope so, and it will be interesting when they do make that trip out in the Pacific, if they actually do collect something. I mean, the odds are, if you're out there a month, maybe a little bit clearer, a little better of a chance. But how long they're going out to sea for exactly?
I think it's like 2 weeks, but 2 weeks. I haven't checked in on their schedule lately to know for sure.
Yeah. Maybe I know that someone was in the chat room that may want to call in with some more information on that. But I did want to find out more of, I don't know what you know about it or don't know about it, but actually playing on YouTube right now, it just showed the looking out the little porthole on the Hawkeye and showing the Tic Tac right there.
Ironically, is the video of Roger. That's
Oh.
one of the videos I had sent.
Yeah.
That's why it's blurred out.
How about that? But anyway, it'd be interesting to know what type of equipment they're going to bring with them. Do you know anything about any of that?
I do not know about the specific equipment that's going out. I know the people that they have involved, and it's, a who's who of, smart people, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, again, it sure really will be interesting. I decided that I was going to open up the phone lines early this evening, and I'd like to do that and take calls. And also, we will be giving away a T-shirt tonight to celebrate our 400th show, and also some artwork by my sister Heidi Powers, who actually is in chat, or she was a minute ago. So anyway, we're going to be taking callers, and I'll put that number up. And that is 855-472-5483. 855-472-5483. And you're welcome to call. We have someone standing by that will screen the call, and please direct your questions on the incident itself. Let me ask you this, PJ. Since this has happened, have you looked into other UFO incidents? I know the one off of Florida was pretty interesting and similar.
Honestly, I have not put any time and effort into any of the other stuff out there because I wasn't involved in any of the other stuff out there. And, I firmly believe on seeing to believe. And I've seen much of the evidence for this one, which is why I believe in it. So I've kind of stayed isolated to the Nimitz Tic Tac.
Yeah, and I gotta say something about that. That, in my opinion, that adds to your credibility only because you're not out there you're not a big UFO enthusiast. This is a one story for you, and that's what it is. So. All right, we have John from California. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Martin, and thanks for having PJ on. PJ, thanks for your service, and thanks for coming forward. I'm really impressed with your knowledge and of the situation, and I respect everything you say. How anybody cannot believe stuff that you're saying is beyond me. You're so credible. It's really refreshing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
My question is just a quick one. I've heard David Fravor, Commander Fravor, say, I can't remember who was interviewing him, that he was had a very high position on the ship, and he said that if anybody came and took the, you call them bricks, I know there's another name for them, but that he would have known about it, and he disagrees that was done. So how come? Have you talked to David Fravor? Why is there such a discrepancy?
We collectively had tried to engage David Fravor in conversation, and he wants nothing to do with us. We actually tried reaching out to him again through a third party who basically called us all liars in the middle of a conversation and stayed with Fravor's story. But I'm going to put it this way. I 100% believe everything that Dave Fravor has said. The man is not a liar. He's just got some misinformation. Just because he was as high in the food chain on the carrier as he was does not mean he had a need to know what was going on in everyone else's squadron. The Navy doesn't really work like that. There's a bunch of stuff on my airplane that he has nothing to do with and would have no reason to be read into programs to learn about that stuff. So as far as he's concerned, that stuff doesn't exist because he has no need to know about it.
Got it. Well, that explains it. Thank you for the clarification, PJ, and
You're welcome.
and thanks for coming forward. I really appreciate your information. Thanks again, Martin.
All right, John, thanks for the call. And next we have Kevin calling from Augusta, Georgia. That's where Stone Mountain is. Hi, Kevin.
Well, actually, hey, Martin. Actually, that's over in Atlanta. We're actually here where they have the famous golf tournament, the Augusta National.
Oh, okay.
Canceled, of course, because of this Corona thing, or put off until November, actually. So I got really, one. It's actually two questions, but I'll just do it in one. And by the way, I really have enjoyed your show. I think you do a fantastic job, really, especially when you got guests that, a lot of people might say are a little bit suspect. So anyway, when you had when this event occurred, did you ever get a sense from your interaction or your exposure to the phenomenon that any sort of mental issue, any sort of mental perceptions, like it was aware of you or you were aware of it, but it was something other than just a piece of mechanical stuff running through, the sky? And afterwards, have you had any kind of effects, that you think that it's maybe, because a lot of people talk about there's cognitive or consciousness effects afterwards. If you could share if any of that's happened with you, I'd appreciate it. And I'll hang up and listen.
All right. Hey, thanks, Kevin. Thanks for your kind words as well.
I know Kevin Day has spoken publicly about his interactions with the objects, but what a lot of people get confused is I never actually interacted with the object. All of my experience with it is after the fact, dealing with my gear being taken after the fact. I never saw the object with my own eyes. I never saw the object, period. So I really have no interaction with it to be affected by. At the same time, since then, I really can't connect any dots about how I'd been affected with it. So hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah. No, I understand. And I have talked to Kevin and to some of the details, which is pretty interesting. And, not actually, him being aware of the radar and all that, not actually, I don't believe Kevin actually physically saw the object. I know someone went out to one of those big, huge binoculars you have on board and saw
That was
something.
Gary.
That was Gary?
Yep.
Yeah. So, and how well do you know Gary? Do you speak with him often?
Beforehand, didn't really know him. I'm sure because of our jobs, I'd spoken with him a time or two, but we didn't really know each other. But since then, we've been, the whole group of us have become pretty close friends. So. And
when it comes to things on, you wouldn't have known anyone on the Princeton. You worked on the Nimitz, which was a huge, I know they're I forget what the population is on those things, but it's big.
Just got 6,000.
Isn't that amazing? I was on an aircraft carrier. I had a friend in the Navy out of San Diego years ago, and I just couldn't get over it. It was amazing. They had I remember they have their own machine shop for building parts out at sea. It's just amazing what's on those things. It's like a city.
Exactly. Because of my job and how intertwined the Princeton's job is with my airplane's job, I talked to people on that ship over the radio on many occasions, but never to the point where I knew who exactly I was talking to, or, I might recognize a voice here and there, but that's about it.
Yeah. All right, we have another caller. Callers. Looks like we have Dave, Altman, and Jason. Is it the Jason?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. Yeah, we just figured we'd call in and say hello to you and PJ and see how the corona's treating you guys.
Can't complain. Still working.
I'm isolated up in Maine. I'm really pretty safe where I'm at, but thank you for asking that. And hope all is well down there. Jason, your last name, is it How do you say your last name?
Turner.
All right. Oh, Turner.
Yeah, it's Jason Turner.
I'm sorry. Right. Yeah, I get the names mixed up a little bit. And Jason, why don't you tell the listener how your involvement?
I was on the USS Princeton from 2001 to 2005. I was actually working in supply during this whole event, and by happenstance, I was in CES when all of this went down, like right after it all went down, and I got to witness the whole video, the full length video, not the one that we see today. So,
wow,
yeah, that's kind of a short and simple.
Is there anything you can talk about on that video without getting in trouble?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much anything. It's 7 to 10 minutes long was the original video, compared to the 1.5 minute long video that we see today. It's a lot clearer, there was a lot more detail in it in the video.
And was this actually? I know there was a different type of video that was recorded and what we see online, but did you have like a I don't even know what you call it, but I mean a high definition type of video you could look at?
Well, if you look at FLIR video of today, it doesn't compare to the newer videos, but it's not anywhere near what we see in the video that has been circulating. It was like all the letters and everything, and all the numbers and everything it was just clear. So it would be like if you were to just clear everything up. Even the Tic Tac itself was a lot clearer than what you see today.
Were you actually able to observe those little antennae or whatever they were on that?
I'd heard Commander Fravor talk about that particular L-ship on the video. I couldn't tell if they were there, but I couldn't tell if they were L-shaped or hockey stick. But they were there. They were definitely there underneath the vehicle.
And what did you see as far as the movement of this thing?
There were a few, like when it first started, it was erratic. Then there would be times when it would just leave the screen, and you would see him maneuvering. You would see all the different, the numbers changing, of course, whenever they're moving. But then, this thing, it would zip from one place to another and just gone. I mean, quick. So.
Wow. Boy, I would love to see that. And so many people listening tonight would love to see that video, and it's a shame we're not able to, actually. And you know that it exists at this time. It's just where it is and who gets to look at it.
Right. And that's something I think from the beginning that I've wanted. I've always, as soon as I saw the original video being released into the public, I'm like, where's the rest of this video? Because, there's more. And it may not be as interesting as people may think, or even some of the pilots may try to downplay it. But what's not interesting to you is very interesting to me.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Well, just the movements of the thing, and with no, there's no visible propulsion, no wings. It just defies what we know at this point. So, I think it's pretty incredible.
And it's like once the thing moved, it was like it had a mind of its own. Like it wanted to go from point A to point B at this set speed, and that's where it went quickly.
Yeah.
And that's the only way to really describe it. There was no acceleration, like you see in modern vehicles, there's a slow acceleration or a fast acceleration, but this thing was just accelerate and stop wherever it was going.
Now, what was your position so you were actually able to view this thing?
Yeah, I worked in supply, S1 on the ship, and I'd just taken up a computer board up to CES to give it to them, and I went in CES. Of course, you have to sign in, so there's a log there. And when I went in, I guess it was playing on a loop.
Wow.
In CES at the time.
Yeah.
So I'd ask a friend of mine if this was real world or was this part of the workup that we were doing, and he was like, "No, this is real world." that's real world, and that was the video.
Wow. And
Hey Martin,
Yeah,
I
go
wanted
ahead.
to get something in real quick about you had a caller ask or say something about Fravor and the need to know, and I remember during Fravor's interview on Joe Rogan, I believe he was saying, like, oh, if somebody had came and taken, the bricks, I would know because, I know everything that happens. But earlier in the interview, he was complaining about how the Navy had been observing the objects for about 2 weeks, and he was mad because when he went up and he encountered them, he was upset because they didn't tell him that these objects had been seen prior. So if he was in the need to know about everything, why wouldn't he have known that those things were up there? That kind of contradicts him in a way of him saying he knows everything. See what I mean?
Yeah.
So right there tells you that obviously he doesn't know everything, because if he did, he would have known those things were up there.
That's a pretty good point. Dave, I know that you were pretty
I agree.
involved with this trip going out on the Pacific. You know a lot about it. Can you talk, just fill us in a little bit on that?
Yeah, I mean, right now we're kind of on pause, obviously. So, although we're all doing, our own personal research of what we can to get it started, we really haven't been talking much about when we're actually going to be going or how long. I mean, until this virus thing and the stay in place goes away, we're just kind of just waiting. A lot of it also depends on funding. We've got Kevin Knuth is working on some grants, which is also obviously on pause. The one thing I did hear you ask about was the technology of what type of technology is being developed. We are speaking with a couple of companies that are, Fortune 500 AI companies, technology companies that are willing to work with us and help us. One of our guys is a very smart gentleman named Dave Mason, and he's been developing some great new technology that has to do with night vision and all sorts of different sonar and radar, and we're having a lot of things custom built that has never been used before. So I guess in a way, us having to wait is also a good thing, because while we're waiting, these guys are spending their time building new technologies to help us.
Oh, that works. How about that? Before you go, Jason, just one other question. Were you told at the time when you saw this video, were you told anything like, well, maybe you shouldn't be seeing this, or maybe you shouldn't talk about it, anything like that?
No, that was never spoken to anybody that I know of on the ship, unless it was, a few other people that may have, that when those people come and got the from Gary and Kevin. But no, again, it was just happenstance that I was there, and it happened. I was kind of under the radar, and here we are.
Yeah. And how did you end up coming forward with this?
I saw Dave's video, and I just contacted Kevin, and of course we all got back together and just kind of discussed going public with it, and they kind of encouraged me to talk, and I did.
How about that? Wow. Well, I'm glad you did too, and I sure would love to see that video you saw.
Well, and I tell you though, since even just from me coming forward, we've been able to kind of piece together all of these little dots that are everywhere. And, there's been people on the back end that are doing open record requests and through the Freedom of Information Act, and it validates everything everybody's saying. And to me, that's an even bigger victory to all of this is now that the government is finally having to acknowledge it.
Right. That's right. Well, hey, thanks so much for the call.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to put out there while you're there? While you're on?
I'm gonna post in the chat room the UAP expedition website that PJ built. It's still being made, but people can at least go and check out what we got up there so far.
All right. All sounds good. Hey, thanks for the call. I really appreciate it. And nice talking to you.
Have a good one. Take care, PJ.
Take
You
care,
too, man.
All right. Bye.
All right. So I'm going to spill the beans. The next caller wins a T-shirt. So if you call in at 855-472-5483, that is, we had 2 callers on this one, so that would be 3 callers altogether. This would be the 4th caller, and PJ picked number 4 as one of the numbers. So next caller calls in, gets a free T-shirt sent to you free, and you can pick it out and all that stuff. That information is all on podcastufo.com. We have a link that I forget exactly what it says, something like items. I don't know if it says T-shirts or not. I never look at my own website, but it's over there. I think it says merchandise, I believe. So anyway, the line is open. So PJ, had you been in touch with Jason all along?
Him and I reached out to Dave Beatty roughly the same time.
I see. Yeah.
We actually have a little Facebook chat that the group of us are in, and we talk relatively daily almost.
Ah, wow. Great. All right, so I'm going to pull over the T-shirts so someone can look at it. We do have someone that just called in, and they are a lucky winner of the T-shirt. I just don't see their name there yet. They're being screened right now. So do you think that there is a future where someone will actually figure out what these things are? Or do you think it's hopeless?
At some point, we're going to find out what it is. I don't know what the timeline is, but at some point, the answer is going to come out. I hope it's before I die.
Yeah. That would be really great to know what these things are. And again, on this show, I try to stay away from saying that I know what these are, but they certainly do have capabilities that are just not known that we know about, as far as I know.
A lot of physics alone.
Yeah.
Going to redefine what we know.
Yep. All right. Very good. So we have Ron calling from Minnesota, and I understand that the screener has taken all your information for the T-shirt. Congratulations. You got yourself a T-shirt.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Martin.
Sure.
Yes. I tuned in late. Sorry about that. But I remembered that it was on anyway. So
yeah.
Here I am.
All right.
Thank you for that. What do you think about the Tic Tac situation? What do you think it actually is? And what do you think about moving forward with doing research as far as evaluating what we are looking at, and should we be concerned about our safety and security and all that stuff?
I don't know what it is. I would like to think it's our technology. It could be alien technology. I don't know. There's not enough evidence either way. As for who's researching it, I know we are as a group with UAPX. I'm sure TTSA is still looking into it, and who knows what other organizations may or may not be looking into it. I don't know that answer. As for do we have to be scared about it, I don't really know. I mean, it showed no outward hostile actions when we interacted with it. It seemed like from the descriptions given by Fravor, and all the other pilots who saw it seemed like it was just toying with us. It never tried to hurt anybody. It never tried to harm us. So I wouldn't think we need to be scared of it. But that's just my opinion.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time and your work that you're doing. Thank you, Martin, for your show.
All
Great
right.
show.
And you'll get a T-shirt. You got to just go to our website and pick it out. Why don't you email me? I know he got he got your information, but you want to go to my website and check out the type of T-shirt, and it's yours. We'll get it out to you.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right, Ron. Take care. All right. So there's still something to be won by an upcoming caller. And anyway, that number is 855-472-5483. Yeah, I mean, right off the bat, I would say that if you can't replicate what's going on with that technology, it can be scary. You know, that's something you don't hear a lot of people really talking about. But, I mean, think of the capabilities if it could do. I mean, we saw, or you saw, or they saw what it could do, but not everything it could do. You know, we have no idea what else it could do.
I'm sure there's a lot of, like I said, there's still a lot of unknown with it. But like I said, just based on what we saw, it could be, you know, in LA and then, you know, 30 seconds later be over China, or,
yeah,
you know, like, there's no telling how fast it could truly go or what its limits are.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, that's something I never really thought of, but we really don't know if that was full speed ahead, what it was doing. You know, that may have been just half throttle. You never know. Okay, I'm ready to take. We have another caller, and that's we have Chris calling from Houston. How are you, Chris? Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me. I called a few weeks ago, and you mentioned that I should call. Of course, great topic.
Yes, right. Yeah.
Couple of about the Tic Tacs, and we had spoken a bit about what they might be or not be, and so I had a couple of analogies I wanted to throw past your guest and see, and because I have a question, but the question comes from the analogies. One is the behavior of these things, and seems like, in one way, sort of like a laser that you like point to make a cat chase after it. And so, you know, in the speed of the movement, how it go from place to place, mind of its own. And I think, you know, if you had something that was like triangulated lasers from orbit, that, I mean, is it theoretically possible to create a three-dimensional image that bounces back instrumentation signals to aircraft that reads like an object and visually looks like an object but is not an object? So that's one analogy, is the laser pointer and the cat's chase. The other one would be oh dear, now I've forgotten the second analogy. Well, I'll just go with the first analogy. So the question is, without getting into specifics, the kind of instruments that we have, would we be able to know that something that reads like an object is really an object? That's the question I have. And I'll let you know.
Short answer is yes. Is there an outside possibility that whatever technology that was couldn't, or, you know, might not be able to verify it? But based on what I know about my radar, my ESM, and all the other things in use on my airplane, what I know about the Princeton's radar, there's no way you're going to be able to fool all of them with a hologram technology or a, you know, technology of those lines. Is it possible to slip past one of them? Yeah, you know, you can technically jam one of them if you really, really tried hard. But getting past all of them and fooling all of them, I don't see it happening based on the capabilities of that technology. Awesome
answer. Awesome answer. I thought of the other analogy, and that is that if you were down in a trench at the bottom of the ocean and you encountered an instrument or something unusual that wasn't supposed to be there, that behaved like nothing else there, and it was coming from the surface, what would you assume it was? And what it probably would be a research drone or an instrument taking readings, doing research, observing, with no living beings on board, sending images to somewhere else. So if you think the atmosphere is the ocean, I mean, it could be that these things are just instruments taking readings. So that's it. I'll let you comment. I'll take it off the air. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Great show.
Thanks.
I'm not really sure how to answer that one. I mean, it's possible. It was obviously it could be a drone. It could be some sort of research technology bouncing around, learning things. There's been speculation that it was chasing after the whales for all we know. So that could be what it was. I don't really know how to answer that part.
Yeah, there's the whale migration, right? Happens right there, right? I think it's right along the coast there.
Yeah.
We have a question that came in from Ufologist on chat. He wanted me to ask you if you ever saw any type of UFO prior or since.
I have not. Like I said, I also really haven't been looking.
Yeah.
The closest to anything I've seen was doing a night vision goggle sky tour thing out in Laughlin, Nevada when the group of us went out to MegaCon last year. And there was a lot of stuff in the sky. I know some of them are satellites, but other ones, who knows what they were. I don't know what they were, but all I saw was a little green dot on a black screen, so it's kind of hard to say.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, once you have a UFO sighting, you will look up in the sky. That's what I found. That's what I found for myself once I had my sighting. I'm always looking. I can't help but look. But I also like astronomy as well. What's that?
I am 100% open to UFOs, to aliens, to all of that. I'm not a skeptic. I'm not.
Yeah.
I just kind of need to see for myself. And if it happens, I'd be all for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You guys will be the first to know.
Right. And a lot of I wonder how many skeptics would change their mind on this if they actually saw something themselves. Would they or would they not? Who knows? I had Seth Shostak on, and he said, I saw something that I thought was a UFO once, and it was a missile launch off of California, which they are spectacular. They can be spectacular in the upper atmosphere. So and a lot of people do see those and think, right off the bat, it's a UFO. It is a UFO until you know what it is, basically. But it has the rap, the bad.
Yes.
UAP. You can call it that, whatever you want. I should have named this show podcast UAP. Anyway, the number is, the line's open, and next caller wins artwork. So 855-472-5483. And so I guess I'd have to ask you, when you reflect on this whole thing, and I just saw your message in chat, you don't think this whole thing was that big of a deal overall, or?
Yes and no. I mean, based on everything that's come to light since we've gone public, we've learned a whole bunch. But at the same time, without knowing the answer, it's kind of hard to get excited about it.
Yeah. I know that is probably frustrating in a way. And do you have like a network, like a private Facebook page type of network where you communicate, or just each other's email addresses that you talk to other people involved?
Like I said, the group of us on Facebook have a group chat that we stay in touch in.
I see. Oh, I got it. The group chat. All right. Yeah, that
and
makes
it's
sense.
ironically named the OGs
Huh.
It's just the small group of the original ones of us that, we talk about it, we share stuff, we help Dave Beatty vet people, we do all kinds of random stuff.
Now, did I hear not that long ago that someone else came forward? Maybe about 6 months ago or something like that?
There is Ryan Wiglet, I butcher his last name, who was attached to the helicopter squadron on the Princeton that came forward, probably about 5-6 months ago now, a couple months ago, and clarified and verified parts of Gary Voorhees' story about guys coming onto the Princeton to take all of Gary's tapes. The guys getting off the helicopter, walking onto the ship, et cetera, et cetera. He was witness to all that because he was one of the helicopter mechanics on the Princeton. And I know Beatty's working on some other guys here and there. So
yeah, and does he add the interviews separately on his YouTube channel, which is very popular, by the way? I think he's got millions of hits on.
Tremendous. I mean, he initially had a version of it that just Gary and Kevin Day helped him create.
Yeah.
Then when he flew out to MegaCon with us, he dragged us out to the desert and made me go for a hike, which I did not like, and ordered us and got, some in-depth interviews. And those raw interviews, the footage for those raw interviews, he's also shared on his channel. But he recorded all that to extend and make his Nimitz Encounters video, which you can see up in the corner behind me.
Yep.
To make that longer, and he's since done other interviews. Like I believe he's got Ryan up there, he's got Omar Lara up there.
Oh yeah, I remember when Omar came forward. I remember that. That was that like a year ago or something?
Yeah, a couple months after Gary and I came forward, or the rest of us came forward.
Yeah, and by more people coming forward, it does actually solidify things. Not that we need it to be solidified, but it does. It just helps. The more people that come forward, but still, it doesn't really change anything, really, does it? Because we really don't know too much. Oh, it looks like I'm going to be sending artwork to Norway. Uh-oh. Okay. We have Bart from Norway. Bart, welcome to the show. You get some artwork coming your way. And
awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mark.
Sure. You're going to have to email me, and my contact information's right on my website. But go ahead and do that, and I'll get this sent out to you.
No problem. Yeah, I've sent a couple of emails to you last week, actually, so it's no problem. I can find you easy.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Cool.
You have a question for our guest?
Yeah, kind of. First, I just wanted to say, thanks for the show, mate. It's my favourite show. It was one of the first ones I found, and I've been listening to you for years, and so keep up the good work.
Well, thank you.
And I just want to say thank you. Yeah, no problem. It's a great show, and I just want to say thanks to PJ. I've interacted with him a little bit on Twitter, and him and Gary and Jason. They're always very good at answering questions, and I just wanted to say thanks for being such good sports and for being such.
Bart, we're having trouble with your phone. I don't know if it's the way it's positioned or not, but why don't you go ahead again? We didn't hear what you just said.
Oh, okay. I'll try again. I just wanted to say thanks to PJ and to Jason and also to Gary if he's listening for how approachable they are on Twitter and how good they are at getting back to people and answering questions. That's one of the reasons I don't have too many questions, because the guys have been really good at answering my questions on Twitter.
Oh, that's great.
But I just wanted to let them know that. And also I do have a question about Omar's story. I know it's been said, I'm really fascinated by that story, and I know it's been said that maybe there's more witnesses coming forward with his part of the story. And I was also curious that if it happened so close to the ship, wouldn't there be radar data on that incident as well? I was just wondering what PJ thought about that.
The radars in use on the Nimitz are more meant for lack of a better term, air traffic control than anything else. But I have to believe that right after they left my workspace, right at the end of my passageway, is the spaces where they had all the Nimitz's data. And I have no evidence and no verification, but I'm pretty sure they probably took all their stuff too.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think that's a really interesting part of the story. That incident. It'd be really nice to have more information and to hear more people talking about it.
Yeah. It would be.
Anything else, Bart?
No, that's it. Thank you, Martin, for having me on the show. That's great.
All right. Thanks a lot. Have a good night. Middle of the night for you there. Have a good one. Yeah, I think it's probably like 2 or 3 in the morning over there right now. I'm not sure. It's late. Yeah.
Not 8 o'clock and I'm already tired.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. One of the things I think I said this to Kevin Day, and it's just a curious question, and would be interesting to get your take on it. And that is, it seemed like there was an opportunity for the Navy at the time to, it seems like there would be some curiosity. Kevin Day had mentioned they had been seeing these things, these objects for a while, and I'm not sure exactly what made them finally, go out to the area where the objects were. But it just seems to me that, okay, they spotted it, they saw it. Wouldn't they want to really look into it? They had this opportunity where they could really try to figure out what's going on, and that just puzzles me.
The one thing everybody has to realize is what we were actually doing out there. What the Princeton was out there for, what the Nimitz was out there for, the Air Wing. We were out there to train for a deployment. Mm-hmm. There's such a tight schedule for everything that needs to be done. They're not straying from that schedule unless they absolutely have to. One of the reasons Kevin Day was able to get them to divert fighters was because, one, he pretty much pestered his CO to doing it.
So he heard about it before he heard about it before he actually went out. He heard this was going on?
Kevin Day?
No, it was Kevin Day that pestered. I see. I'm sorry. I was thinking you said Dave. Yeah, okay.
No. If I did, I didn't mean to. I meant Kevin.
Yeah.
He called it a safety of flight issue because these things were in our airspace. There are big chunks of airspace off the coast of California that are exclusion zones for everybody else but the military. It's where we go do our training. So he just happened to honestly get lucky. He had fighters in the air at the right time. He had an object on radar at the right time, and his commanding officer just happened to be like, okay, well, let's go look. That could have just as easily not happened. They could have just as easily kept the fighters in the air defense exercise training and never gone to look at it.
I see. Yeah. And what about the mystery of this thing? I think they call it the cat point.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you explain that? Can you explain what happened to the person that may not know this?
A cat point is combat air patrol. It's a made-up point in the sky. It's a made-up latitude, longitude, and altitude. And that's where they go do circles until they're needed. Point changes all the time. It's made up during mission briefing based on where they're going to train and what they're doing. It's not a standard point. It's not a routine point. It's not something they use all the time. It's relatively different all the time. So the fact that object knew where that cap point was is one of the biggest confusing things to this whole story for me to wrap my head around, because it's not something they talked about over the radio. It's not something that was really advertised outside of the guys who were briefed for that air defense exercise. So somehow that object knew where that point was.
Yeah.
And that's something I can't solve yet.
Yeah. Yeah, that seems like it's one of the big mysteries of this whole thing.
Yes.
And because how the heck would it know to go there, unless they are all over the place? But still, I mean, this is a specific pinpointed place.
Exactly. And even if it was our technology,
yeah,
there's still no reason anybody off that ship would have had that point.
Yeah. And I think that was since we both watched the same video with the former intelligence person, supposedly, that
Yes.
was talking about this. He was saying that's the evidence that it's Air Force, right? Didn't he say something like
Yep.
that? Yeah.
Relatively, but that's the whole problem is there is no reason for that information to be sent off the ship.
Yeah.
Unless it was a joint exercise with the Air Force, they would never know that.
Yeah. And I think he was saying it was a joint situation, but only the above tiers knew about it, that type of thing. And but I mean, as far as just say devil's advocate, the commanding officer, would he be setting these points, or would he know anything about these cat points?
Depending what commanding officer you're talking about. The skipper of the Nimitz, probably not. The skipper of the Princeton, probably not.
Yeah.
The Hawkeye crew would know where that point is.
Yeah.
The people flying in that exercise would know where that point is. And that's it.
Yeah.
They have a handful of briefings before they go flying. They will brief by themselves. They will brief with the other pilots. They will brief because sometimes it's other squadrons. So they, go over to one of the other ready rooms and brief. And eventually the whole little group for that whole training evolution all get together, and that's when that stuff is decided. And they all write it down in little notebooks and go about their day.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess the one last question I have, we're getting near the end of the show here, is, well, it's not necessarily my last question, but a question is, the information that they could have gotten off of the as you call them, bricks, but would that, if you actually had that information yourself, would that just be more solidifying of this whole case? I mean, could you actually see what was going on with that information? It showed the radar, basically, on that.
I mean, ultimately, what was recorded was not only what the sensors on the Hawkeye saw, but because of data links and multiple data links, it also saw what the Princeton saw. It also saw what the Princeton saw, or the fighter saw and the Nimitz saw. All of that was tied into the Hawkeye. So I would have seen a big picture of everything going on. There were even ground stations in Southern California that were tied into the network. So we would have seen what they were seeing.
Wow.
All of that. But specifically, if I had that data and I had the ability to record it and make a copy of it, and I wish to this day I did, but I didn't know any better.
Yeah.
It needs a specific machine to read the data. But if I had access to that machine, I could put it in, and from second 001 of that flight to however long it took, I could see everything they saw. And just by clicking certain things, I could check what data they saw, what they looked at, what the radar was tracking, if the radar lost it, if the radar thought it was being jammed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's a tremendous amount of information on those bricks alone that may not solve every problem, but could answer a ton of questions.
Wow.
About these. And knowing that where that data went to almost makes it worse, because somebody used that data to answer more questions that we haven't seen. to brief people about what this was. What other information did they have to go along with all the data that they took from me?
Right. Yeah. No, it's fascinating. Now, there was one, someone had mentioned, and I don't know if this is backed up at all. We only got a minute here. But did the Tic Tac actually block radar, or was there any of that, or is that just a rumor?
I think it's just a rumor. There's no indication on the Hawkeye that it was being jammed. There's no indications on anything I have access to that indicated anything was being jammed.
I see. All right. Hey, PJ, it's been really great talking to you tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. I really appreciate you coming on your show and all that you've done and you coming forward and all that. It means a lot to a lot of people.
Yes, sir. Have a good night.
All right. Take care. All right. All right, everyone. So that's it for the show tonight. Thank you so much for listening. Remember to check out our website, podcastufo.com. Next week, we have Zelia Edgar. She's going to be on. Should be an interesting show. And I want to thank everyone that listens and supports the show. And remember to keep your eyes to the sky.